We are just days away from preseason game number 2, where the New York Football Giants will travel down to Houston and square off against the Texans. We're going to be live on the channel as well, and that's why you should subscribe and turn your notifications on. And we're trying to beat Houston, Texas today in a subscriber battle. My good friend and co-worker, Jeremy Chuggs, he's the host of our Texans Today channel. He has been yapping and yapping. I've been calling him a yapopotamus for all the smack he's been talking. He said that there are more Texans fans than Giants fans, and I just do not believe that. So if you love the Giants and you want to tell Chuggs to shut up, subscribe right now. Welcome into New York Giants Now by Chat Sports. I am your host, Marshall Green. Coming up on today's show, 5 things that every single New York Giant fan should be paying attention to this Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, where the Giants play the Houston Texans. Number 1 thing I'm looking at, this offense. Number 8, the quarterback, Daniel Jones. This will be Daniel Jones' first live action since he did tear his ACL back in week 9 of last year against the Las Vegas Raiders. And you need to see him out there. Brian Daboll told the media over the weekend that the expectation is for Jones to go out there. Things could change because we know when the Giants use the word expectation, it is just the expectation. Has not played, though, since week 9 of last year. We know what the season was for the New York Giants last year. It had way more downs than ups, and for Daniel Jones, he didn't play all that well. Did he have a nice situation around him? Was he in a situation to be successful? Probably not. But he didn't play well either. Completion percentage was fine at 67.5%, but 2 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. Jones played in preseason week 2 of 2023 versus the Carolina Panthers, and I know everybody remembers that infamous drive where Jones targeted Waller again and again and again, and it was play action fake after play action fake and play action fake. So I do expect for the starting offense to play. And if you are going to put Daniel Jones out there, I need every other starter on this offense playing outside of Malik Neighbors. Neighbors dealing with an injury. We know who he is. We know what type of player he can be and will be. I've seen enough. I don't think you need to play him. Keep him on ice until week 1 against the Minnesota Vikings. Overall take on Daniel Jones playing is he needs to do it. He needs to go out and play in the preseason game where he's not wearing a red jersey, where it's live action, bullets are flying, because week 1 against the Minnesota Vikings and Brian Flores, they are going to give Daniel Jones every look under the sun on defense. They are going to blitz and bring pressure from every single absolute angle. And I don't want week 1 against the Vikings to be the first time that Daniel Jones is standing in a pocket where he could have his head torn off. He needs to go out there and feel the pocket. Maybe take a hit in this game against the Houston Texans. Have some bodies fall on the ground around his feet and just build up that confidence. Again, he needs to play. I think he will play, and I'm excited to see him do so. Thing number 2, the New York Giants defensive line versus the Houston Texans offensive line. One of my major takeaways from preseason game number 1, where the Giants beat the Lions, was I felt like the Giants controlled the line of scrimmage. And the Giants defensive line, I thought they played pretty well, and I thought that they generated good pressure. The Giants had 18 different pressures against the Detroit Lions offensive line. Lions didn't play their starters, though. Giants didn't really play their starters as well on defense. But I have heard from Jeremy Chuggs, host of our Texans channel, that he is expecting the starting offense to play for the Texans like they did in their first preseason game. The Texans offense, number 1, played 2 series last week in their preseason game, and they have a pretty solid offensive line. Laramie Tunsil, one of the best left tackles in the NFL. Titus Howard, when healthy, has played pretty well. Juice Scruggs entering year 2 after being a priority pick by them. Kenyon Green is a former first-round pick. And Shaq Mason has had some success in this league playing for the Texans as well as the New England Patriots and even for the Tampa Bay Bucks for a little bit. And I want to see this defensive line. You look at the interior defensive line with Dexter Lawrence and Raheem Nunez-Roches, with Jordan Riley, DJ Davidson, Ryan Anderson, Jordan Phillips, with Horn, Elijah Chapman, and Rodgers. I want to see how a guy like Elijah Chapman and a guy like Jordan Riley and Phillips and Raheem Nunez-Roches, how they fare against the interior offense line of the Texans. And we know Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau are big-time players, But I want to see how a guy like Benton Whitley, who I thought played well in that preseason game, maybe a guy like Boogie Basham, Azeez Ojulari played a good bit in that first preseason game, didn't really produce. So I want to see how he does playing against a more game-ready, game-one-ready, week-one-ready offensive line in the Texans, where it sounds like they are going to play their starters. I want to see how our ones stack up against their ones and how our depth stacks up against their depth. Also want to take a look at that running back 2 battle. This has been at the top of my list of things I'm watching for all preseason long. And in week 1, it was the show. I had my popcorn. I was eating it. I thought they looked really good. And the stats show you that they all played really good. Eric Gray had that touchdown run of 48 yards, had 2 different touchdowns. I thought they all looked good. Yards after contact as well by all of them were great. Of the 52 yards for Gray, 51 were after contact. Tyrone Tracy, of his 26, 23 were after contact. And for Dante Miller, 63 or 42 of his 63 were after contact. So it wasn't like they were just running through holes and they were running to green grass untouched. These guys were having to make people miss. They were having to fight through contact. They were having to run through arm tackles, and that RB2 job is wide open. We know Devin Motor Singletary is going to be RB1, and it's going to be very difficult for Joe Shane and Brian Dable to decide which of these other 3 guys is going to be the next leader in the clubhouse. Tyrone Tracy, I think that he is probably the most complete back of the 3. Not an elite pass catcher, but obviously as a receiver, changing to a running back, he has those skills. When you balance out strength with speed, I think Tyrone Tracy is the most balanced. Dante Turbo Miller has that getaway speed. He can put the pedal to the metal, and if you let him get to the sideline, he's going to eat it up north and south. And Eric Gray, a guy that we saw could make people miss. He's really good at that. He just doesn't have that top-end speed, but he showed it on that 48-yard run. Who do you think should be RB2, though? It's tough to choose. I think maybe all of them should get some carries. But if I had to choose today, I'd go Tyrone Tracy. So I would type my TT. Let me know your thoughts, though, in the comments section. We'll talk more things to look forward to in this game. But first, I got to give a huge shout out to a returning sponsor, one of my favorite sponsors, and that is Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS. Use that promo code CLNS, and they will match your first deposit up to $100. It's the best daily fantasy sports app on the market. I don't know why it took me so long to play Prize Picks. Now I can't get enough of it. Football season is around the corner, as well as basketball season, which means it's time to play daily fantasy, and you could do it with our proud sponsor, Prize Picks. The lineup that I'm rolling with for week 1 features Devin Singletary and Aaron Jones. Give me the more on rushing yards for Devin Singletary and the less on rushing yards for Aaron Jones. I think the Giants defense is going to stand tall and be good in running and stopping the run this year. You can roll with my picks or fade my picks, but I kindly ask you to do it at Prize Picks. That's prizepicks.com/CLNS. Use that promo code CLNS, and they will match your first deposit up to $100. Easy and exciting daily fantasy sports. Pick more, pick less, play Prize Picks. All that information will be clickable down in the comments and description of today's show. Something else that I'm going to be keeping my eye on as well are the Giants corners versus the Texans wide receivers. Because the Houston Texans have maybe the best trio of receivers in the NFL. Going out and adding Stephon Diggs. We know Nico Collins is a beast, and Tank Dell was awesome in his rookie year, and he already has a touchdown in the preseason as he works back from injury. With Diggs, Collins, and Dell on the field, still Woods is a good player. John Mechie's a good player. Shout out to Steven Sims as well. Went to my high school. They're a good group of players. And we know the Giants' cornerback depth chart is probably the weakest spot on this team, and that CB2 job is open for grabs as Cordell Flott is dealing with a quad injury. Also, Drew Phillips is nursing a little bit of an ankle injury, so we may get an extended look at some depth pieces, like Trey Hawkins, who was the training camp MVP hype train guy last year. I thought he looked good in the opener in the preseason. Will Breon Borders play some more? Will Nick McLeod play? Will Trey Herndon get an extended look? But we are going to see a young corner in Deonte Banks, who played in preseason game number 1, going to get an extended look at preseason game number 2, how he stacks up against Diggs or Nico Collins or Tank Dell. 3 really good receivers is going to be an early litmus test for this Giants defensive backs I want to see how they stack up against some of the league's best. Number 5, and kind of the most important thing I'm looking forward to is, who are the New York Giants? Who are the 2024 New York Football Giants? What is the identity that this team is going to play with? Because I'm going to be honest with you, after week 1, I saw a physical football team. I saw a smash mouth brand of football on both sides of the field, offense and defense. The Giants controlled the line of scrimmage against the Lions. I thought they did on offense, and I thought they did on defense. And I don't want to overreact to one game, so I'm going to ask myself, is that who the New York Giants are going to be? Are the Giants going to be an in-your-face, smash-mouth, physical, violent, we're going to move you out of the way football team? Because that's what they did in the run game, that's what they did on the offensive line, and that's what they did on the defensive line. And if you can control the line of scrimmage, if you win the trench battle, you are most likely going to win the football game. And the Giants have not been that type of team in a long, long time. And if they are, with Carmen Bracillo and Andre Patterson, two of the better positional coaches, offensive line and defensive line in the NFL, if those guys can raise the floor of their position groups for this football team, they're going to stack some W's, and a lot more than a lot of people are going to think that they will. Who do you got, though, in the preseason game? Not that it matters who wins, but I think it'd be pretty cool to be 2-0 in the preseason. And if you beat teams in the preseason, kind of means you're a deeper team than the other teams. And depth always comes out in a positive way in the regular season. Maybe just take it as an opportunity to spam those NYGs in the chat. And if you haven't yet, give me a follow on social media. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram @MarshallGreen_. Hit me up over there, and let's talk some New York Giants ball.